Time for another new brand. Meet the Farizon SV or Supervan. This fully electric parcel carrier is enough to make the high ace brigade wake up in a cold sweat, because this thing offers a lot of interesting approaches to the commercial van segment, and it does have a few different versions available. I'll tell you all about it in this review, tell you the pricing too, which might shock you, and also some great alternatives you might want to consider. So let's check it out. It's Supervan time. Thanks for subscribing, it means a lot. Never heard of Farizon? Don't worry, you're probably not alone. In fact, I'm sure you're not. But this is part of the Geely group out of China, and it's being distributed in Australia by Jameel Motors. And look, it does offer a pretty intriguing option for those thinking they want to electrify their business and buy a fleet of EV vans. Well, it could be a very interesting option, but it's going to be pricey if you are considering this vehicle, because while it does have the same powertrain and the same battery pack across the 3 different variants that are available, the pricing is pretty ambitious, I would say, for a new brand with no proven track record in our market. And well, there are some cheaper alternatives, which I'll tell you about later on. But let's talk about this one right here, the short wheelbase, low roof version. It's the one that'll probably appeal to the most customers out there. Then if you want a long wheelbase, low roof, you can get that as well for an extra $2,000. And then there's also a high roof long wheelbase version with a massive cubic capacity in the back, which will be certainly very, very parcel friendly, but it's $76,500 before on-road costs, and that is a whole lot of money for a van like this, even though it does come pretty well loaded with some pretty impressive equipment. You're getting LED lighting all around the car. There's 16-inch wheels with those decorative covers on them, and you've also got auto lights, auto wipers, keyless entry, push button start. There's a bulkhead to provide some protection from parcels in the back for those up front. You get a 3-seat layout standard. You can get it with 2 seats if you prefer, but the seats are heated and ventilated, which is really quite fancy for a van like this. You've also got climate control, a 12.3-inch touchscreen media system with wired Apple CarPlay, no wireless and no Android Auto, so that could be a problem. There's a small digital instrument cluster as well. There's also front and rear parking sensors, and a surround view camera system is standard too, as well as a whole host of active safety technology and equipment, which we'll get to later on in this review. But let's talk about some alternatives, because, well, the EV van space is actually more competitive than you might realize. If you want a fun and funky van for your business, then check out the Volkswagen ID. Buzz Cargo. It starts at about $80,000, and it's a one-size-fits-all proposition largely, so it doesn't have different roof heights and wheelbases, and it has a pretty limited payload. So it's not going to suit everyone, but it will suit those who do want a van that stands out from the others in the segment, because it's really quite impressive in a lot of different ways, and it's great to drive too. Another option you might want to check out if you're working with a bit more of a budget than this is the LDV E-Deliver 7. That fully electric van range starts at about 64,000 drive away, and there are a few different versions available, including long wheelbase and high roof models that might suit your business's needs, because it is a pretty competitive thing, and it does have some, well, annoying things about it, but it's also pretty decent in terms of the driving range and the capability on offer. And otherwise, you might want to wait for a couple of new entrants that are coming soon. The Volkswagen Transporter BEV is arriving shortly. That fully electric model starts at a fairly high price again, but if it's not right for you, then maybe the Ford E-Transit Custom might be the one to go for, because it is related to it and it does start at a lower price point, so it could be worth looking at. There's also a plug-in hybrid version of that Ford Transit Custom coming, and it might be the best alternative if you are not so sure whether EV will be right for your needs. But have you say in the comments, would you choose any of those or something else? Let me know. Okay people, there are quite a few things to go through when it comes to sizing up this van. So the short wheelbase low roof model, you'll see the dimensions for it on your screen now. That is competitive in the class. Less than 5 meters long, so not too tedious in terms of the size, but it is still a big unit. And then if you go for the long wheelbase version, you're getting an extra 500 millimeters of wheelbase to contend with, and you can get it with the low roof, and you'll see the dimensions for it on your screen. Yeah, almost 5.5 meters long. It is a big unit. And then if you want the biggest unit, you go for the high roof model with the long wheelbase, 2.5 meters tall. So don't go thinking that you're going to be able to fit in all those underground car parks. In fact, you probably won't fit in any. Now, ground clearance is about 150 millimeters for this vehicle. And look, there's a few capacity numbers to go through in a sec, but I want to show you one of the interesting things about this vehicle. Because it is built on a dedicated modular platform, it doesn't have some of the other things that you find in diesel vans that have been converted to EV. So look at that door opening space. That is massive. That's because there's no B-pillar. But you do get a bulkhead as standard, which is pretty handy. There's also a little grab handle there to help you get in and out, though the step-in point is actually not too bad, and it does have a lower floor than lots of other vehicles in the segment because it is a dedicated platform. Your battery pack is all underneath the floor, and you've got plenty of tie-down points. It does have a lined floor there. It's not maybe the best lining, but I think it's pretty good. I think you can get it with a wood floor if you want that instead, and you do get the barn doors at the rear. So let's have a look from the back, see what we're working with. A pretty interesting handle, not one of those weird ones that you get in some other vehicles, but I don't like the fact that these hinges are so, well, prominent. They stand out quite a bit, and that's to allow it to do the 180-degree fold. You can get it with 270-degree fold, and you've also got this side too. So I'll put some cargo area dimensions on your screen now so you can see what kind of space this van offers, and it is plenty, and it does vary between this one, which is the short wheelbase low roof, to the long wheelbase low roof, because you get more cargo area length, and you also get even more space if you choose the long wheelbase high roof, as you would predict. Also, what about cargo capacity? Well, all of them have more than 1 ton of cargo capacity on offer, and this one here has the best, 1,300 kilos. And it's also got almost 7 cubic meters of cargo capacity. You'll see all the cubic meterage on your screen now. Certainly very, very practical and very clever. You've got lighting in the back as well, as you would expect. And on this side is a very important section of this car, the vehicle to load port. So you've got a number of power points there, as you can see, up to 3.3 kilowatts output, and that means that you can basically run a business from your van. So make sure it's fully charged. You might be able to plug in a coffee machine and some cleaning gear, whatever it may be. Even run all your worksite tools from the back of the van. That is pretty impressive. Now underneath here, you'll also see, impressively, a full-size spare wheel, which is great. And I'll give you a glimpse at the suspension back there. Yes, it does have a leaf spring suspension, and it is a front wheel drive, so there's no motor or anything underneath there to worry about. But yeah, I think that this could be a very interesting option in terms of those looking to size up their business and, well, size up the capability as well. Now let's check out the interior and see what it's like. Okay, let's check out the interior of the Farizon Supervan. It is a pretty super place to sit, I've got to say. I like the fact that you've got some color in here. So many other vans in this class are just black on black, but this has got a nice big section of orange that runs across the dashboard and also onto the doors. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a perfectionist, but I do think that the finishing here, as you can probably see in the reflection there, could be better, I would suggest, for this kind of money. And some of the plastics on the inside of this vehicle certainly are made for work, but they don't necessarily feel very nice to operate. So you've got a little drawer here. It's not too bad, but it is a bit sticky. There's another little shelf section down below there where you might store your phone, as I have. And you've also got these little cupboards underneath the seat, and they're a bit fiddly, and they just sort of flop down. It's all, well, basic and a little bit cheap feeling in some ways, I have to say, for the money. Now, you've also got these big bottle holders down there in the doors, a little storage tray in the door pocket as well. There's a good sized glove box as well, and you don't get any overhead storage. So that might be an issue. Another thing you don't get is vanity mirrors, so you can't sort of check yourself out before you show up at the work site. You do get a manual flicky mirror, And look at that, there's bugger all to see out there anyway. A digital camera mirror would be great for a high-tech vehicle like this. That's a miss, I would suggest. Now, on the side here, you'll see you do have a hoik handle to get yourself in and out. You don't have an overhead grab handle though, so that might be an issue. And your controls, let's have a look at some of these. Okay, so you've got a regen brake mode controller there. You've also got a drive mode controller there. Your fog lights, actually not sure what that one is, but you've got on the steering wheel here a number of other decent to use controls. You've got this one here, which will either operate what's happening on the screen or on the small screen. So yeah, that is one you can cycle through, as you see there, a number of different parameters for the vehicle. One thing that is pretty cool about this car, it does have inbuilt scales. So you can see there, it tells you how heavy it is and might give you an idea that you might need to go on a diet before the summer. But you've also got these controls, which are pretty simple. On this side, you've got your cruise control, a voice control system, and a hill descent control as well. This guy right here, that's a driver monitoring camera, and you've got a shifter on that side with park button on the end. On this side, you'll find you've got an everything stalk. So it's got lights, it's got wipers, and it's got your high beams and washers too. There's a start button down here. Your controls for the climate system are, well, thankfully, buttons. That's good to see. You've got little toggle switches for the temperature and a fan controller. But if you do want to go a little deeper into what's happening on the screen, you can, and adjust where the air is going. You've also got right here the seat controls, so you can go in and turn on your seat ventilation or heating for the driver's seat or the passenger seat, depending on what you're looking at. And if you don't want the 3-seat layout, if you just want to have a single passenger seat, you can get that instead. You've got radio, FM, AM and DAB, which is great, and you've got the Apple CarPlay, as I mentioned earlier. So I've had no real issues with this system so far, and you do have a drop-down menu, but it doesn't work on CarPlay. So you have to go back here, and if you want to adjust some things on the fly, you can. You will have to do a lot of this every time you get back into the car. If you don't want your intelligent speed assist on, you can turn that off. And you've also got a number of safety systems there that you might want to switch off. And look, this is a pretty decent thing. You've got a quick button there to go to your surround view camera if you just want to see where you are in space. And there's a number of other menus on here, as you can see too. You can play back video if you're sitting still. You can go into your vehicle settings, and you might want to do that to adjust some further things with your driver assistance features. But the emergency lane keep, that might get on your nerves. So might the lane keeping assistance. And you've also got driver monitoring system too, which, yes, if you don't like it, might be a problem because it comes back on every single time you get back in. So look, I think that the tech in here is manageable. It's just whether you're okay with turning safety stuff off every time you drive it if you don't like it. And when it comes to your driver's seat, there's not actually that much adjustment. You've got backrest adjust, but you don't really get any height adjustment, and you can slide it forwards and backwards as you would expect, but maybe not as good as you might hope for. If you want to sit up a bit higher to be able to see out over the bonnet, you won't be able to, which is a problem. And also a problem is the fact that it doesn't have reach adjustment for the steering wheel. It's only got this rake adjust or tilt adjust, so you can put it up and down, but you can't pull it out towards you. And I think that's a bit rubbish, quite frankly. But you do get good mirrors with a good view out the sides there, as you can see. And thankfully, the controls are all pretty easy to learn, including the switches on the doors here. And you've got, thankfully, not through the screen mirrors, which is good. So yeah, plenty of good stuff in this cabin, but it's just whether this will suit your needs, which could determine whether this van will suit your needs. Rightio, let's have a look under the bonnet of this vehicle. Yes, it is a front wheel drive, as I said, and it is, well, a front mounted electric motor. As you can see right there, there's a pretty compact bonnet area for this vehicle. And I'll also show you the power and torque figures for this front wheel drive van on your screen right now. I think that is decent for this type of vehicle, but obviously it is moving a lot of mass, even more if you load it up. And speaking of which, there's pretty decent towing capacity for this vehicle too. 750 kilos unbraked and 2-ton braked towing. But let's talk about range and charging. All versions of this van come with an 83 kilowatt hour LFP battery from CATL or CATL, and they all have a different level of EV driving range. WLTP rated figures are on your screen now. That is not fantastic for a big battery, but it is an LFP and they are known to be less efficient when it comes to using them for what they're supposed to be used for. But let's have a look at this charging situation, shall we? So you do have a charge port on the front driver's quarter, which is a strange place for it because, well, if you're a street parker, it might not suit where you park. Could actually be pretty painful, I have to say. But let's talk about the charging stuff. So AC, yes, at 11 kilowatts. You will need 3-phase power to take advantage of the charging time, which from 15 to 100% is claimed to be about 7 hours or 9 hours from empty to full at 11 kilowatts. And DC, you'll see the charging rate for that on your screen. And the brand does claim a relatively speedy DC charging time at the maximum rate from 20 to 80%. But yes, you do need to be mindful of the charge port location and be mindful of the charging situation and also the EV driving range, because it isn't the best that you can get in this class, certainly not for this kind of money. But let's go drive it and we'll see what it's like. Okay, so can you hear that electric sort of whir? Yeah, I can hear it too. It's pretty frustrating, I have to say. And if you're doing anything less than, say, 70 k's an hour, it's going to be evident pretty much all the time. And that could be really, really annoying, especially if you're like me and your idea of torture is hearing someone filing their nails or, running their fingers down a blackboard, because it's sort of reminiscent of that, and I haven't liked it. It makes my teeth feel furry, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, don't like that. But I also think that this, more generally, is a pretty likable experience if you can get past that annoying noise that, well, I just don't like it. Anyway, okay, so electric motor, front wheel drive, plenty of grunt, no doubt about that. A couple of drive modes to pick from as well if you are trying to maybe drive as eco-friendly as possible. You can also adjust the regen braking, but I will say that the regen is pretty difficult to judge, and so is the actual brake pedal feel. It's a brake-by-wire system, so it's not like other vehicles in the class, and it does mean that you don't necessarily get the same kind of feel or feedback or trustworthiness, I would say, from the brake pedal response. But you do have the regen braking, and you can put it into the most assertive mode, which will come to an almost stop. If you are facing uphill, it will stop. So yeah, that is pretty good, I would suggest. And you do have multiple drive modes, as I said. Now let's do a U-turn in this cul-de-sac, because that's what lots of these vans will spend their time doing, just doing U's. I'll put the turning circle numbers on your screen now. That's not too bad. This is the standard wheelbase version, so it's the more maneuverable, but the long wheelbase ones have 14-meter turning circles, which is massive, and it will mean that your U-turns will be 5-point or 7-point turns, I would suggest. Thankfully though, the steering is very, very predictable and manageable. It even has a bit of feel through the wheel as well. You can sort of feel the tires nibbling at the surface, and it does respond well when you do turn the wheel, I would say. Now the ride, it is on the firm side unladen, as you probably would expect for a vehicle with leaf springs at the back and also with a big heavy battery as part of the equation, but it is certainly, I would suggest, acceptable for a van like this. And if you do load it up, you will be able to find that, well, it'll be a bit more calm, a bit more comfortable, as I found. Now, the other thing I'll call out is that this van is relatively easy to see out of and around in some situations. So you've got great mirrors, you've got a fantastic camera system, you've got the parking sensors front and rear, but you don't have a very good view out the back. And as I said earlier, I think a digital camera mirror would be a great upgrade that the brand could make to make it even easier to see out of. Now, if you're the sort of driver who tends to maybe not put their seatbelt on when they jump back into their van after doing a quick delivery or something, keep this in mind. You have to put your seatbelt on before this vehicle will go into drive. And that could be a problem for some, I would suggest, because I'm realistic. Now on the freeway, it does have a bit of noise to contend with in terms of wind noise intrusion. But there's one thing at higher speeds that I do find to be rather frustrating. It's the cruise control system. There's no standard cruise control. You've got adaptive or intelligent cruise. So the intelligent cruise will adapt to the speed signs for you. The adaptive cruise will just do your distance keeping for you. But the thing about it is that it won't allow you to just use a regular cruise control, because that doesn't exist, but also it will brake for you when you are approaching a corner and it thinks that you need to brake. Even if you don't think that you need to brake, it will slow you down. And that could be problematic if you have someone up your behind and you aren't necessarily thinking that you need to slow down, but the car thinks you are, and it will slow you down rapidly. It's pretty dangerous in my opinion. I don't think that it should be a standard thing, and you can't turn it off, which is even more dangerous. Okay, all three versions of this van come with the same battery pack, the 83 kilowatt hour LFP battery. And if you know batteries, you know LFP is maybe not the most efficient chemistry type that you can pick. And the efficiency numbers, well, there aren't any official ones that were made available to me or that I could find, but I have done some maths to try and figure out, based on the range for each of the different body styles, how much you might theoretically be able to get out of a charge. And you'll see those numbers on your screen now in terms of the kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. Now, this one works out to be 22 kilowatt hours per 100, but I haven't seen close to that during my time testing, which has included a mix of urban and highway and freeway and stop start and commuting and that sort of thing. And I've been, well, a little bit underwhelmed by the results I've seen. And it will mean that if you see similar, you're not going to get heaps and heaps of EV driving range from this van. And it could be a real problem for those who are aiming for that. But I know these sorts of vans typically might be bought by businesses that just do a lot of stop-start driving, a lot of urban running and back-to-base operations, so that might not matter. The range thing might not be a consideration. The other stuff might be. So let's talk about some of the other things that you need to know when it comes to, firstly, safety and then ownership. Okay, Euro NCAP gave this vehicle a 5-star safety rating for commercial vehicle testing, and that is very, very good. It was done in 2025, so it's very recent also. But you know what's really odd? This car only has 2 airbags, just a front driver's airbag and a front passenger's airbag. There's no side airbag coverage, there's no front center airbag, there's no driver's knee airbag, and that is really quite odd. But there's also a heap of standard safety technology and equipment to achieve that kind of high score that they get when they put them through all the tests. Things like autonomous emergency braking, there's pedestrian and cyclist detection, there's lane keeping assistance and emergency lane keeping, which might get on your nerves, and so might the driver monitoring camera system, and so might the speed sign recognition system. But there's also blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. Plus, you get the front and rear parking sensors as standard and a surround view camera, which makes this thing easier to pilot in urban driving situations, especially if you're trying to find a spot and fit into it. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think. Is 2 airbags a bit shit in 2025? I think it is. Farizon offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty in the Australian market, which is great, and there's also an 8-year warranty for the battery pack in this vehicle too, so that should put your mind at ease in terms of ongoing requirements. Now, speaking of which, you've got 12-month and 30,000 kilometre service intervals, which is very, very good, and I haven't got service pricing for it just yet. And another great thing about it is that you do get 5 years of roadside assistance included. So that might take a little bit of the risk out of your equation, but still, it's an unknown brand, as I've said a couple of times already, and the resale value might be the actual big consideration when it comes to your ongoing ownership costs. this is certainly an interesting van from an unknown brand. Now that's the biggest sticking point in my mind. Considering the asking price, you are rolling the dice if you're thinking about this vehicle. But if it fits your needs and you're okay to pay, well, it could be a fantastic choice, I'd say. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Have your say in the comments. And guess what? I'll see you when I see you.